Major Ethan Blackwood stood tall in his crisp army uniform, his broad chest adorned with ribbons and medals that spoke of his valor and dedication. The early morning sun glinted off the polished brass of his insignia as he strode through the corridors of the military base, the sharp click of his boots echoing in the hallway. Junior officers snapped to attention as he passed, their eyes filled with a mixture of respect and admiration. As he entered his office, his aide, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, greeted him with a stack of reports and a steaming cup of coffee. "Good morning, Major," she said, her efficiency evident in every movement. "Your schedule for today is on your desk, and there's a reminder about dinner with your wife tonight." Ethan nodded his thanks, settling into the leather chair behind his desk. His eyes fell on a wedding photo prominently displayed next to his computer. Jasmine, radiant in white, smiled back at him, her dark eyes sparkling with joy. Even after 7 years of marriage, the sight of her still made his heart skip a beat. As he sifted through the day's reports, Ethan's mind wandered to the life he had built with Jasmine. She was everything he'd ever wanted: beautiful, intelligent, and caring. A nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Jasmine had a way of lighting up a room with her presence, bringing comfort to patients and colleagues alike. Their life together seemed perfect from the outside, a fact that Ethan was acutely aware of and grateful for every day. But there was one shadow that occasionally dimmed their happiness, a quiet burden they carried together. Despite years of trying and countless fertility treatments, Jasmine had never conceived. It was a sorrow they shared in private moments, clinging to hope for a miracle that seemed increasingly unlikely as the years passed. Little did Ethan know, as he immersed himself in his work that morning, that the foundations of his carefully constructed life were about to crumble. A secret, hidden for years, was ticking like a time bomb, ready to explode and shatter everything he thought he knew about his wife, his marriage, and himself. Across town, Jasmine Blackwood moved through the bustling corridors of Northwestern Memorial Hospital with grace and purpose. Her nurse's uniform was crisp and spotless, her demeanor calm and professional. To her colleagues and patients, she was the picture of competence and compassion. As she finished her rounds, checking on patients and updating charts, Jasmine felt a familiar unease creeping up her spine. It was a feeling she had grown accustomed to over the years, a constant companion that reminded her of the precarious nature of her carefully constructed life. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, a senior oncologist and Jasmine's closest friend at the hospital, caught her eye from across the nurse's station. With a subtle nod, Amelia indicated an empty consultation room. Jasmine followed, her heart rate quickening with each step. As the door closed behind them, Amelia's professional demeanor softened, replaced by genuine concern. "Any more thoughts about telling Ethan?" she asked, her voice low and gentle. Jasmine's carefully maintained composure faltered for a moment. She sank into a chair, the weight of her secret suddenly feeling unbearable. "I want to, Amelia. Every day, I wake up thinking today's the day. But then I see how happy he is, how proud he is of our life together, and I can't." Dr. Rodriguez leaned against the desk, her arms crossed. "You can't live in fear forever, Jasmine. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. Ethan loves you. He deserves to know the truth." Jasmine nodded, blinking back tears. "You're right. I know you're right. I'll tell him. After dinner with my parents tonight, they've been pushing me to come clean too. Maybe having them there will make it easier." As Jasmine left the consultation room, her mind raced with possibilities. How would Ethan react? Would he understand? Could their love survive such a revelation? The weight of her secret felt heavier than ever, threatening to crush her under its burden. Unknown to Jasmine, a figure lurked in the shadows of the hospital corridor, watching her intently. The observer's eyes narrowed as they took in Jasmine's distressed state, a cruel smile playing on their lips. Everything was falling into place, just as they had planned. As the sun began to set over Chicago's iconic skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Major Ethan Blackwood sat in his car outside the hospital, waiting to surprise Jasmine. His fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel, his mind replaying a strange phone call he had received earlier that day. The memory of the call sent a chill down his spine. It had come just as he was preparing to leave the base, the caller ID showing as unknown. Hello? Ethan had answered, curiosity mingling with caution in his voice. Major Blackwood, the voice on the other end had said, distorted and clearly disguised. I have information that you need to hear. Ethan's military training kicked in, his senses immediately on high alert. Who is this? How did you get this number? The caller ignored his questions. Your wife isn't who you think she is, the mysterious voice continued. Ask her about Michael Jenkins from Detroit. The truth will shock you, Major. Before Ethan could respond, the line went dead. He had spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, unable to focus on his work, the caller's words echoing in his mind. Who was Michael Jenkins? What did he have to do with Jasmine? And why did the caller sound so ominous? As Jasmine approached the car, Ethan's heart raced. Should he confront her now, or wait until they were home? The weight of the unknown pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. Jasmine slid into the passenger seat, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Hey, honey, this is a nice surprise. I thought we were meeting at my parents' place. Ethan forced a smile, trying to keep his voice steady. I thought we could grab coffee first, maybe talk a bit before dinner. Jasmine's body tensed almost imperceptibly. Oh, I don't know. You know how my mom gets about punctuality. Maybe we should just head straight there? The tension between them was palpable, filling the car with an uncomfortable silence. Unable to hold back any longer, Ethan blurted out, Jasmine, does the name Michael Jenkins mean anything to you? The effect was immediate and alarming. Jasmine's body went rigid, her face draining of color. What? Where did you hear that name? Before Jasmine could explain, a sharp rap on the window interrupted them. They both jumped, startled by the sudden intrusion. Standing outside was a man in a dark suit, his expression grim and determined. Major Blackwood? The man asked, his voice muffled through the glass. I'm Agent Daniels from the Army's Criminal Investigation Division. We need you to come with us. There's a matter of utmost urgency we need to discuss. As Ethan was whisked away, leaving a visibly shaken Jasmine behind, he couldn't shake the feeling that his world was about to come crashing down around him. Little did he know, the events set in motion that evening would lead to a night of violence, revelation, and tragedy that would shake the city of Chicago to its core. The interrogation room at the CID headquarters was stark and cold, the harsh fluorescent lights casting an unforgiving glare on its occupants. Major Ethan Blackwood sat rigidly in an uncomfortable metal chair, facing Agent Daniels and his partner, Captain Rivera. The air was thick with tension, broken only by the occasional hum of the air conditioning system. Major Blackwood, Agent Daniels began, his tone professional but tinged with sympathy. We've uncovered evidence of a sophisticated identity fraud ring operating out of Detroit. During our investigation, your wife's name came up in connection with some irregularities. Ethan's mind reeled, struggling to process the information. What kind of irregularities? He managed to ask, his mouth suddenly dry. Captain Rivera slid a folder across the table. We have reason to believe that the creation of Jasmine Blackwood's identity involves some discrepancies, falsified documents, potentially stolen medical records. It's a complex case, Major, and we need your cooperation to get to the bottom of it. As Ethan flipped through the folder, his world began to spin. Birth certificates with conflicting information, inconsistencies in Jasmine's educational records, and most alarmingly, medical documents that didn't align with what he knew about his wife's history. This can't be right, he muttered, more to himself than to the agents. Jasmine wouldn't. She couldn't. Agent Daniels leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. Major Blackwood, we understand this is difficult to process, but we need to know if you've noticed anything unusual, any inconsistencies in your wife's background or behavior. Ethan's mind raced, recalling countless small moments that had seemed insignificant at the time, but now took on a sinister new light. Jasmine's reluctance to talk about her childhood, her insistence on keeping their circle of friends small, her inexplicable panic attacks when certain topics came up. I don't know, Ethan finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I knew her, but now. The agents exchanged glances. Major, Captain Rivera said gently, we need your full cooperation in this investigation. Your security clearance could be at risk if we find you've been withholding information. As the interrogation continued into the night, Ethan felt the ground crumbling beneath him. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his marriage, was suddenly cast into doubt. But even as his world shattered around him, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that there had to be more to the story. Jasmine, the woman he loved, couldn't be just a fraud, could she? While Ethan was being interrogated, Jasmine found herself in a nightmare of her own making. After being left alone in the car, she had driven to her parents' house in a daze, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. As she paced anxiously in her parents' living room, the elaborate dinner she had prepared sat untouched on the dining table, growing cold as the hours ticked by with no word from Ethan. Her parents, Thomas and Eleanor, watched their daughter with growing concern. "Sweetheart," Eleanor began gently, "maybe it's time to consider leaving. If Ethan reacts badly—" Jasmine shook her head vehemently. "No, Mom, I love him. He deserves to hear the truth from me, not from some cold case file or stranger." A sharp knock at the door startled them all. Jasmine's heart leaped, hoping it was Ethan, but her hopes were dashed when she opened the door to find two grim-faced police officers. "Mrs. Blackwood?" one of them asked, his hand resting casually near his holstered weapon. "We need you to come with us. There are some questions we need to ask you down at the station." In that moment, Jasmine made a decision that would change everything. With a quick glance at her parents, she bolted, pushing past the surprised officers and running into the night. She could hear shouts behind her, but adrenaline fueled her flight as she disappeared into the maze of suburban streets. As she ran, memories flashed through her mind. Her life before Chicago, the struggles, the pain, and finally, the joy she had found with Ethan. She couldn't let it end like this, not without explaining, not without fighting for the life and love she had built. Jasmine found herself at a small park, hidden in the shadows of an old oak tree. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed a number she had hoped never to use again. "It's me," she whispered when the call connected. "I need help. It's all falling apart." The voice on the other end was calm, almost expectant. "I've been waiting for this call, Jasmine. Or should I say, Michael? Don't worry, Big Brother's got a plan. Meet me at the old warehouse on West Harrison Street. And Jasmine, be careful. You're not the only one with secrets in this game." As Jasmine ended the call, a chill ran down her spine. She was about to step back into a world she had fought so hard to leave behind. But if it meant a chance to save her marriage, to explain to Ethan the truth of who she was and why she had kept it hidden, she would risk everything. Little did she know, her desperate flight was setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to a confrontation more dangerous and revealing than she could have ever imagined. As the night deepened, the city of Chicago seemed to hold its breath, unaware of the drama unfolding in its midst. In a seedy bar on the outskirts of town, Ethan Blackwood sat hunched over a glass of whiskey, his military bearing all but gone. The information from the CID interrogation swirled in his mind, mixing with alcohol to create a toxic brew of confusion and anger. His phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Jasmine, her parents, and even Dr. Rodriguez, but he ignored them all. He needed time to think, to process the earth-shattering revelations that had turned his world upside down. As he nursed his third drink, a man slid onto the bar stool next to him. There was something vaguely familiar about him, but in his current state, Ethan couldn't place it. "Rough night, Major?" the stranger asked, signaling the bartender for a drink of his own. Ethan grunted in response, not in the mood for small talk. But the stranger persisted. "You know, it's funny how life works out sometimes. We think we know people, but everyone's got secrets, even those closest to us." Ethan turned to face the man, his eyes narrowing. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I'm someone who knows a thing or two about your situation, about Jasmine. Or should I say, Michael?" Ethan's hand shot out, grabbing the man by the collar. "What do you know? Tell me." The stranger remained calm, slowly removing Ethan's hand from his shirt. "Easy there, Major. I'm here to help. Your wife is in danger, and not just from the law. There are people who want to use her, exploit her story, but I can take you to her. 1255 West Harrison Street. She'll be there, and so will the answers you're looking for." Before Ethan could respond, the stranger slipped away, disappearing into the crowd. Ethan sat there, his mind reeling. Despite the haze of alcohol, his protective instincts kicked in. Without a second thought, he rushed out of the bar, unaware that he was driving headlong into a trap that would lead to a night of violence and tragedy. As Ethan sped through the nearly empty streets, the stranger watched from the shadows, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Everything was falling into place, just as he had planned. Soon, the Blackwood siblings would be reunited, and old scores would finally be settled. The abandoned warehouse loomed before Ethan, a hulking shadow against the night sky. The rusted metal door creaked ominously as he pushed it open, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside, the vast space was dimly lit, shadows dancing in the corners, hiding untold secrets. "Jasmine," he called out, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "Are you here?" A muffled sound drew his attention to the center of the room. There, bound to a chair and gagged, was Jasmine. Her eyes widened in fear and desperation as she saw him, trying to communicate something he couldn't understand. As Ethan rushed towards her, a familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. "Hello, brother. Long time no see." Emerging from the shadows was a face Ethan recognized all too well, his estranged younger brother, Derek Blackwood. The years had changed him, hardening his features and adding a dangerous glint to his eyes. "Derek?" Ethan breathed, barely able to believe his eyes. "What are you doing here? What's going on?" Derek's laugh was harsh and bitter. "Oh, come on now, Ethan. Surely you've figured it out by now. I'm the one behind all this. The identity fraud ring, the investigation. It was all me." As Derek circled them, Ethan's mind raced, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "You were the anonymous caller, the man at the bar. But why? What does Jasmine have to do with any of this?" Derek's eyes flicked to Jasmine, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Why don't you ask her yourself? Or should I say, ask him?" With a swift motion, Derek ripped the gag from Jasmine's mouth. She gasped, tears streaming down her face as she looked at Ethan. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I wanted to tell you so many times. I was afraid." Ethan's world tilted on its axis as the truth came crashing down. "Michael Jenkins," he said, the name suddenly taking on a new, painful significance. "That was you, wasn't it? Before." Jasmine nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, I'm transgender, Ethan. I transitioned years ago, before we met. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared of losing you, of losing everything we had built together." Derek clapped slowly, mockingly. "Bravo! What a touching revelation. But you see, brother, your dear wife here is more valuable than you know. A successful transition, a perfect new identity. She's a gold mine of information for my little operation." As Derek ranted about revenge and building his own empire, Ethan noticed Jasmine working at her bonds, their eyes meeting briefly in silent communication. Despite the shock and hurt swirling inside him, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He loved Jasmine, regardless of her past, and he would do anything to protect her. "It doesn't have to be this way, Derek," Ethan said, taking a cautious step forward. "Whatever happened between us in the past, we can work it out. Just let Jasmine go." Derek's laugh was tinged with madness. "Let her go? Oh no, brother. This is just the beginning. You took everything from me, and now I'm going to take everything from you." In a blur of motion, Jasmine broke free from her bonds, knocking Derek off balance. Ethan lunged forward, tackling his brother. They grappled on the cold concrete floor, years of pent-up resentment and betrayal fueling their fight. A gunshot rang out, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Ethan, struggling to his feet. Jasmine, arms outstretched, pleading. And Derek, the gun wavering in his hand, indecision warring on his face. Then, with a roar of anguish and rage, Derek pulled the trigger again. The bullet found its mark, and Ethan watched in horror as Jasmine crumpled to the ground, a crimson stain spreading across her chest. In that moment, something inside Ethan snapped. With a strength born of desperation and grief, he wrestled the gun from Derek's grasp. Another shot echoed through the warehouse, and Derek fell, a look of surprise frozen on his face. As sirens wailed in the distance, Ethan cradled Jasmine in his arms, his tears mixing with her blood. "I'm sorry," he whispered over and over. "I love you. I'm so sorry." Jasmine's eyes fluttered open, a small smile on her lips. "Ethan," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "I love you too. Always have, always will." As the life faded from Jasmine's eyes, Ethan felt a part of himself die with her. The truth had come at too high a price, and in its wake, only devastation remained. With trembling hands, Ethan raised the gun to his own temple. He couldn't face a world without Jasmine, couldn't bear the weight of what had transpired. As the police burst through the warehouse doors, a final shot rang out, bringing an end to the tragic tale of the Blackwood family. Detective Lisa Chen ducked under the police tape, taking in the chaos of the crime scene. The abandoned warehouse was now a hive of activity, with forensic teams combing every inch for evidence. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood. 3 bodies lay covered with white sheets, silent testimony to the night's violence. As Chen pieced together the events, interviewing witnesses and examining evidence, the true cost of secrets and lies began to unfold. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez arrived at the scene, her face ashen as she identified Jasmine's body. Through her tears, she shared the story of her friend's struggle, the fear and hope that had defined Jasmine's life. It was a tale of a woman desperate to be accepted for who she truly was, caught between her past and the future she had dreamed of. As the investigation progressed, more details emerged. Derek Blackwood's identity fraud ring had been more extensive than anyone had imagined, with tendrils reaching into various government agencies. The revelation sent shockwaves through the military and law enforcement communities, prompting a widespread review of security protocols. The story that emerged was one of tragedy and missed opportunities for understanding. Major Ethan Blackwood, a decorated officer and loving husband, had been unable to reconcile the woman he loved with the revelation of her transgender identity. In a moment of confusion and anger, he had lashed out, setting in motion a chain of events that led to this tragic end. Derek Blackwood, the estranged brother driven by jealousy and resentment, had orchestrated the entire scenario, hoping to destroy his brother's life and exploit Jasmine's story for his criminal enterprise. His plan had backfired spectacularly, resulting in his own death and the destruction of the very thing he sought to control. As the sun rose over Chicago, casting long shadows across the city, Detective Chen stood at the edge of the crime scene, her heart heavy. The case would become a media sensation, sparking conversations about identity, acceptance, and the devastating consequences of living in a society that often failed to understand and embrace diversity. In the harsh light of morning, all that remained were questions, grief, and the long road towards justice and healing that lay ahead. But perhaps from this tragedy might come a greater understanding, a push towards a more accepting society where people like Jasmine could live their truth without fear. In the weeks and months that followed the Blackwood tragedy, Chicago found itself at the center of a national conversation about transgender rights, military culture, and the far-reaching consequences of prejudice and misunderstanding. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez emerged as a powerful advocate, sharing her experiences as Jasmine's friend and confidant. She spoke eloquently about the challenges faced by transgender individuals in healthcare and society at large, using the tragedy as a catalyst for change. Jasmine was more than just my friend, Dr. Rodriguez said in a tearful interview. She was a beacon of hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her story, her struggle, and her love should serve as a wake-up call to all of us. We need to create a world where no one feels they have to hide who they truly are. Jasmine's parents, Thomas and Eleanor, bravely shared their journey of acceptance and love for their daughter, hoping to reach other families struggling with similar situations. Their story of unconditional love touched hearts across the nation, prompting many to reconsider their own biases and fears. The military launched a comprehensive review of its policies regarding LGBTQ+ service members, with many citing the Blackwood case as a stark reminder of the work still to be done. Training programs were implemented to promote understanding and acceptance within the ranks, and support systems were established for transgender service members and their families. As for Derek Blackwood's identity fraud ring, the investigation led to numerous arrests and the dismantling of a network that had exploited vulnerable individuals for years. The case exposed weaknesses in the system that had allowed such fraud to flourish, leading to sweeping reforms in identity verification processes across multiple agencies. In Chicago, a support center for LGBTQ+ individuals was established in Jasmine's name, offering counseling, legal aid, and resources for those struggling with their identity or facing discrimination. The center became a beacon of hope in the community, a living testament to Jasmine's legacy. 1 year after the tragedy, a memorial was unveiled in the park where Jasmine had made her fateful phone call. The statue, a pair of intertwined hands breaking free from chains, bore a simple inscription: "In memory of Jasmine Blackwood and all those who have suffered in silence, may we learn to love and accept one another just as we are." As Detective Lisa Chen stood before the memorial, watching families and couples of all kinds gather to pay their respects, she felt a glimmer of hope. The Blackwood tragedy had been a turning point, a catalyst for change in a city and a nation that had for too long turned a blind eye to the struggles of its most vulnerable citizens. The road ahead was long, and there would be more battles to fight. But as the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in hues of hope, Detective Chen knew that Jasmine's story and the lessons learned from it would continue to ripple outward, touching lives and changing hearts for generations to come. In the end, the Blackwood tragedy served as a somber reminder of the cost of intolerance and the vital importance of acceptance, understanding, and love in all its forms. Chicago, and indeed the nation, would never be quite the same again. And perhaps in that change lay the seeds of a better, more compassionate world, a fitting legacy for a woman who had dared to live her truth, no matter the cost.